Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to a new episode of the Kevirsyle Network podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Davis. I'm a content creator, author, entrepreneur, and have so many hats that I do not feel like explaining at the moment. But one second, my guest is kind of currently offline for a second. Let me see, come back in. One second, guys. Back one second, guys. My guest connection kind of went out for a second, so give me one second. There we are.
I am so sorry. My internet
There you are.
chose that exact second to die.
There you are. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys, but please welcome to the show, Mr. Ben Berwick. How you doing, man?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor. It's a great privilege.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and reaching out to talk about your projects that you got going on, and for the audience that's getting to know you, tell us a bit about who you are and like what you do.
So, by day, I design and sell bathrooms, which is not very exciting. By by night, I write sci-fi stories and among other things, of course. But that's my big passion. I've put together a couple of sci-fi books that I've published, and I'm
Nice.
working on a whole bunch of other stuff as well, which I'm hoping to share with people as and when I feel it's ready to be shared. So that's a very, I guess, a very brief overview of who I am.
And as a science fiction writer, like what like drew you to science fiction that made you want to write it yourself?
I remember watching Star Trek: The Next Generation as a kid with my mum.
Nice.
She was a first, or I should say, she is a first generation Star Trek fan. I mean, she, watched the original when it was new, and she got me into
Nice.
Star Trek. So I'm like a second generation Trekkie. That's how I like to sort of see myself. And
Yeah.
it's all her fault, basically. It's all my mum's fault. She got me into Star Trek, and that was my gateway to eventually sort of watching Star Wars, Doctor Who, a bit of the X Files. Although the X Files as a kid terrified me. It's actually the X Files I blame for a lifelong kind of fear of those sort of big grey aliens with the big eyes. They
Mhm.
always freak me out. Always have done. So thank you.
Ah, man.
Yeah, just like the thought of meeting one of those in a dark alley. No, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. And then yeah, from there, I've watched all the Star Trek or most of the Star Trek stuff. Stargate. I've read quite a bit of sci-fi. So when it came to that desire to write something, the only thing I felt I could write, the only thing I felt I could write properly was science fiction, and I've just it's taken me a long time to actually put pen to paper, but eventually managed to get something out there that was my own, as it were.
Mm, Beautiful. And I know you have your book called The Awakening. That's out now, right?
Yes. So
Like,
The
can you give?
Awakening.
Yeah, I was like, can you give us an overview of what the Awakening is, and like how did you start writing the story?
So The Awakening began life all the way back in 2019, as it happens, and it was inspired by something I haven't actually kind of read or shown much interest in, but it was inspired by the Warhammer 40,000 orcs and the whole idea of, we see orcs as being very savage and violent and aggressive. And I thought to myself, what if there's more to it than that? What
Hmm.
if, we kind of think, right, what, everyone thinks orcs are just, insane almost, but let's make them a bit different. And let's build a culture for them, a society for them. They're still driven by war and conquest. That's a big part of their religion, as it happens.
Hmm.
But what I thought, right, let's do the story about them, and then let's see what happens when you take this very kind of like devout sort of race of orcs and then pit them against an enemy that can actually push back against them,
Hmm.
and what happens to this society when things start to go wrong, things start to unravel, and it just kind of turned into the awakening from there. It's like a cultural awakening. It's a spiritual awakening
Hmm.
for some of the characters at least, and yeah, it just all happened from there.
And when readers like are reading your book without giving away like not without giving away spoilers, what do you expect the readers like to take away from your story of the Awakening?
I would like to think that maybe they reflect upon how even if you feel at your lowest ebb, even if you feel broken and betrayed, that you can still find a way to rise out of that. And in life we can lose, and sometimes we can lose big, but it's never the end of the journey. There's always a silver lining. So that's one of the things that I think, sometimes you have to fall in order to rise. So
Mhm.
that's kind of
Yeah.
a theme for the main character, if you like, is how he goes through an arc along those lines.
I actually like that. You have, sometimes you do have to fall to rise up. As that's a really good lesson to learn because I know like a lot of people kind of like when they fall, they just continue to fall and like don't want to get back up. And like I feel like even as a creator, sometimes you need that push to keep going. And it's like stories like that I love reading because it's relatable. And when you're approaching your writing, do you like create your characters to be relatable somewhere somehow, like to be like for an audience member to connect with your characters? Like, do you immediately approach your writing like in that way, or do you just like basically like wing it in a way when you're writing a story?
Uh, I think in a lot of ways I do actually wing it. I'll fully confess right now. I mean, I have like a loose structure for the stories, but in terms of the characters, they've kind of organically grown as I'm writing them. In one sense, some authors will say it sometimes feels like the characters are actually writing the story themselves, and
Yeah,
certainly with some of my characters, that's true. And they pull me in directions where I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, again, without giving away spoilers, I mean, I've come across situations where I've had to kill characters off, and I'm a
yeah.
bit like, I get to that point, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm attached to you now. If the story
Yeah.
actually developed, and I've tried to develop them along the lines that they can tell stories about themselves and about the human condition, even the alien characters. Sci-fi is always a vehicle for the human condition and telling stories about us. So that's very much how it kind of goes for me.
Yeah, same. Because the way, like one like advice I've always been given as a writer is to allow your character to tell their own story and like putting your mind into the mind of your character and just let it flow. And I learned that doing it that way kind of helps you. It helps for you not to overthink it and just let it just naturally come to you and come through you while you're writing a story. And like that's kind of how I go with my novels that I'm writing, with my comics that I'm writing. I have a basis of what I know, what I that I know of what my character is and how I want to position them. And then from there, I put my mindset into, okay, how would they deal with this situation now? Put them in the storyline. And then how can I make? Then I also think I was like, how can I make each character relatable in some form? Because I don't follow like the basis. I'm like, these are the two main characters. You have to follow them everywhere. I mean, I want each character to have their own personality. Like I'll go by like each character is their own lead, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I don't just like pick and choose which one's the lead. I'm like every character to me is important somewhere, somehow. Because I want my potential audience to grasp and getting to know each character, not just one particular or two particular or three particular characters. And I try to find also I try to find a balance to make sure, like especially with the title of the story, I might make sure this is the character's story, but I want you to know these other characters with the main character. If that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah.
And when you was writing the Awakening, was there like any books or movies or shows like inspired the concept of your book Awakening? And like, and is there like a particular author that you like or inspired by?
I think so. In terms of, in particular, in terms of some of the battle scenes that turn up, I drew a lot of inspiration from the works of David Weber, who wrote the Honorverse.
Mm, mm,
So, I mean, the battle scenes are
yeah.
mostly inspired by that. But
Mm,
I mean, in terms of the characters, I mean, I don't really know where they came from as such. Some of it was definitely influenced by, I mean, without a doubt, by Star Trek in some way, shape, or form. Some of it
nice.
was influenced by Warhammer, which is weird because I've never actually read Warhammer or played the games. I can't really explain that. My brother's into that, so I think I kind of
Ah,
absorbed
yeah.
a little bit of that from him, maybe.
It's like you probably heard it and just kind of got it in your head a bit.
Yes, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, and but yeah, David Weber has influenced it in some ways. There's not so much for The Awakening, but for other things I'm working on. There's an author called John Scalzi, I think is how you pronounce his surname. I might have
I don't
mangled that.
know. Gotcha,
But,
gotcha. Okay.
and he writes very kind of energetic, snappy, peppy sort of stuff, and that's
Mm,
definitely inspired what's coming up later on down the line,
mm,
without a doubt. So yeah, it kind of. But The Awakening is probably influenced more than anything else by, well, by Star Trek, I suppose, in a lot of ways.
mm. And as and on my show, I do have like random tangents at times. um, I'm more of a Star Trek fan compared to a Star Wars fan. Because I've seen more Star Trek than I have seen Star Wars. So I think Star Trek is where well, between Star Trek and like Alien is kind of where I fell in love with science fiction.
Yeah,
And also Alien, I fell in love with horror because I have more of a horror science fiction. But I've seen more. Like I saw the Star Trek Next Generation. I've seen the Star Trek, the like 2009 movie, and then the Into the Darkness and the Beyond movie. I haven't seen the new Star Trek shows though, so that's the only thing I have not seen. Though I haven't seen those yet. Have you seen the shows, the new Star Trek shows that came out the past couple of years, like Discovery? Then yeah, I forgot the other ones, but those shows.
yeah. I quite liked them. I know within the fandom that they polarized opinion a bit. There's been a lot of passion on both sides, so to speak, around some of the new shows. I try not to get too into the drama with that sort of thing. It is sometimes hard to avoid. I mean, no one will hate Star Trek as much as Star Trek fans can sometimes hate Star Trek. But equally, no one will love
Really?
Star Trek the way that we do. So it's been interesting. But I've really enjoyed the new shows. If you get a chance to watch Strange New Worlds, in particular, that's amazing. Lower Decks is like a kind of adult animated Star Trek show, which has a lot of heart to it. It's very funny, especially for a Star
Ah,
Trek fan.
okay. I like that.
Very,
Nice.
very good as well. It's very. There's lots of little touches, and it's obviously made with love. There's no doubt about that whatsoever.
And in your story, The Awakening, who is your central character, and like what makes their journey very compelling for readers to sink their teeth into?
So the main character is a guy called Seluban.
Yeah.
He he starts out when we meet him. He's basically a fleet commander. So he's newly promoted. He's eager to prove himself. He ends up having something of a rude awakening in his first major engagement in battle, and he develops an understanding and shall we say an awareness of this new enemy. And unfortunately for him, however, he is not listened to by his commanding officers, and that leads to a whole cycle of events, which eventually will place him in Coward's Forge, which is basically in this particular society, this particular culture, it's the most dishonourable place that a warrior can be. He's been publicly excommunicated and shamed. His family will have nothing to do with him, and he's basically sort of sunk as low as someone in this culture can sink, and he
Mm.
has to. But the thing is, I mean, he knows beyond all shadow of a doubt that he's been wronged. He has to find a way to get out. Otherwise, everything that he loves will be destroyed, and he has to somehow get out of there. But by the same token, he also knows there's a price to be paid. He's risking. I mean, is he risking the soul of his people in order to save them? And that's the question that
Oh
he has.
wow.
So he's got quite a bit of angst, so to speak. And I mean, moving into like the sort of the second book, some of that kind of manifests itself quite strongly, and that book moves into like kind of a little bit of like PTSD sort of territory,
Mm.
based on his experiences. So, I mean, basically, I mean, I love this character. He's my creation, but I do like to make him suffer. I don't know if that's like a normal author thing. We make characters and then we make them suffer. It's and
I
he
mean,
suffers.
that's the fun part.
Oh yeah,
for us,
absolutely.
like for us in a way, that's the fun part.
We get to toy with their lives. It's
Exactly. Yes.
quite fun.
Yes. I was like, it's entertaining. Come on,
Yeah,
you have to do some torture.
exactly. Yeah, also,
Uh,
which is how you grow in life, isn't it? So yeah.
See, yes, exactly. Was there like a particular scene or like moment that was like either challenging, like rewarding, for you to write, for this book?
I think the moment that he kind of realizes he's being betrayed is quite a good scene. It's very much a moment where the house of cards starts to come down, at least for him, and he starts to realize that a lot of the stuff that he's put his faith in is not what it seems, and it's a challenging moment for him in more ways than one. There's nothing he can do about it in that moment, and he just it's the beginning of his process towards being broken, and
Mm,
it's quite an interesting bit to write without a doubt.
nice. And we can and where can we actually find the book The Awakening so we can actually support you and read the story? Because one, I'm actually compelled to buy it myself. Um,
Sure. So at the moment, if you were to go to my personal blog, which is, bear with me here, so it's meerkatmusings.co.uk.
okay.
You'll find there's a section called Meerkat Books. I have a thing about meerkats.
Nice. Gotcha.
I actually have a, I don't know if you can say there's a meerkat tattoo there.
Like, can't really see it just yet.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. There.
It's a moment
Ah,
for one.
nice.
Yeah, it had
Nice.
to be done. Uh, yeah, it had to be done. But yeah, so it's Meerkat Musings, it's Meerkat Books, and you'll find all the places to find The Awakening and its sequel, The Schism. It's on Amazon, it's on Kobo, and I think it's on. There's at least one other place it's on as well. At the moment, it's only available as an ebook. I'm looking to relaunch the paperbacks in the not so distant future. It
Nice.
uh, it got a bit complicated when I booked this podcast with you. At that time, I actually had a publisher,
Mm.
and unfortunately, that arrangement has since come to an end. So,
Ah,
I mean, I don't begrudge them that. As a matter of fact, I would like to say, if I may, a big thank you to them. It's a publisher called Jumpmaster Press,
mm.
and I don't begrudge them their decisions. They actually, I mean, they helped me as a writer. They helped me to polish The Awakening and to get into a standard that they were actually prepared to put their name against, and you know their label against, as it were, was an amazing moment for me. It sucks that that arrangement's come to an end, but I owe them a great deal. So if anyone wants to check out Jumpmaster Press, go for it. But my books are all currently self-published again. I am looking for a new publisher. We'll see how that goes, but equally, you know, self-publishing can absolutely work. So, yeah, Meerkat Musings, Meerkat Books. Please feel free to check them out.
Yeah, and those links are actually in the description of this live for those watching. So, um, so you can go check out the book right now in the ebook in the support bin. And speaking of the schism, I actually want to talk about the schism as well. I know schism continues your science fiction storytelling. Like, how does that build upon what you established in the Awakening?
I think the schism makes the universe of the Awakening feel so much bigger, but also more personal at the same time. It kind of, I mean, there's several characters in the Awakening who have more of a journey in the schism. Although ultimately the schism is still solely about the story, it's very much not just his story, and these other characters kind of rise in their importance. And it was also very important to me. So the main, if you like, villain, although I have to use that term loosely, we see. You know, I don't want like a sort of typical one-dimensional mustache twirling bad guy. And the I mean, the motive of the antagonists, shall we say, in the schism, they're trying to undo a revolution that took them away from power, and they're not doing it for the sake of it. They genuinely believe they are right. In this instance, both sides, they are heavily motivated by their religion and by their culture, and both sides believe that they are absolutely right. It's not about good versus evil. This is you know, to to every fanatic, the other side is fanatical, and so
Mhm.
that's kind of where the schism goes, and it introduces some one or two like sort of shock and awe moments. I'd like to think,
Mhm.
and it ends with a scene I absolutely love, which is basically a little bit of what I like to think of as gladiatorial combat in an arena.
Yes.
Nice
Um,
moment. And
oh my
so,
God. Yes.
yeah, and then that paves the way straight into book three, which I'm hoping to get released. Well, maybe within the next couple of months. We'll see how that goes. I mean, it's written, it's ready. It just hasn't gone through the editing stage in the way that it needs to.
Ah.
So, and that's the really painful part.
Oof. I
So
understand completely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No
you
problem.
know, you know.
Yes, from novels, and I know editing the novel. I edit novels, magazine, and comics, so I know each one. The editing process is just a headache, but it's worth it at the end of the day, especially when you get to printing it and you get your baby in your hand, and it's like I made it. Now we just got to market it more to get it out to people, and then that's the
Yes.
next headache to get through.
Oh, the marketing is painful.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a painful stage as well, without a doubt.
and and what does like the title of the schism mean within the context of the story for this book?
So it's basically how, in the wake of the awakening, the society of this empire, in many respects, has sort of shattered, and now it's about picking up the pieces. There's a bit of tribalism, shall we say, in play here, and it's about how now these sort of main sides, are they going to come together? Are they going to remain fractured? And
Mm,
how can they unite? Because the big external threat from book one hasn't gone away. It's still there. So they have to think about how to deal with that. But how can they deal with that when they're fighting each other? When they're almost on the brink of a civil war, which is
right.
unheard of in this society as well. I guess you could say that I've kind of I'm keeping the pressure on, so to speak, on the main characters here because
More
they don't have
torture.
time to
Yay.
breathe. Yeah, it's like do it now.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so not a lot of time to do things. Not much time to pause for breath.
And were other characters from the awakening that we will see developed in unexpected ways in the schism.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's one character in particular, and I mean this is the other thing about this society, which I think is quite
Oh,
interesting.
excuse me.
So as I say, it's a deeply religious society. Very, I mean, their faith kind of dominates everything that they do. So I wanted to have a handful of characters for whom, how do people who don't share that belief or have no belief manage in a society where, I mean, pretty much everyone, I mean, our so-called good guys and so-called bad guys, none of them are necessarily going to view unbelievers in much regard. So what happens to them? What happens to the ones who politically or socially or culturally don't sort of fit, as it were? What do they do in this kind of, while while everything's going crazy? How do they cope? What do they decide to do to influence proceedings? So there's a couple of characters along those lines who are pretty important in the schism, and they'll become even more important in the next book.
Mm. Now that's a tease. Nice. Nice. I love the teases. What can you like tell us about the conflicts or stakes that readers would encounter when they're reading the schism without spoiling the story? But like you could like tease us with like especially more torture because as an author I love the torture part. I'm not gonna lie. But what can you tease us about the how big the stakes get with the characters and the situation they're in?
So for Celiban, coming back to sort of the main character again, one of the toughest stakes for him is actually also a very personal one because it would involve his family. It will directly involve his family, his children,
Oh snap!
being caught up in a terrifying moment.
Oh,
And it will also see him later on in the story. You will see him. I mean, he's barely sort of hanging on in terms of his self control. There's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
too much way. There's a scene where he's basically on the brink of beating up a teenage kid in essence over everything that's sort of going on, and he's not sure who to trust. He's seeing conspiracies everywhere,
Oh
and
boy.
he's kind of hoarding, so to speak, all the challenges, as it were. He's taking too much onto his own shoulders because he feels he has to, which is never, of
Mm,
course, a recipe for anything good. And so he's unwittingly playing straight into the hands of his enemies in the process as well, and just he's just basically kind of it all kind of builds up to. I mean, there's moments involving there's a lot of moments involving will they or won't they die in the schism, and
Yeah. Wow.
and without giving too much away, of course, there's a couple of characters who well, let's just say it's not a good idea to get too attached to anyone in the schism because you
Yeah.
don't know who's necessarily not going to make it out of that book alive.
True. Oh God, I love it already. And with the world building yeah, Jesus, tongue twister. With the world building of science fiction, and I know it requires a lot of world building. How do you approach creating this universe with these books, especially when you have to? And also, do you go back to reread what you wrote so you know what you're going doing with the next book? Because for me, I have to do that because sometimes I forget what I wrote in the first plot of my book, and then going to continue it. How do you approach that, and like how do you like have to go back and reread it?
So after I was so book one kind of organically grew, and it actually well, I mean, it kind of underwent a few changes as it went, but it kind of organically grew. And then for book two, I would have book one like sort of open as a separate Word document. Most of the time, you just think, right, okay, something happened on that planet in book one.
Mhm.
What was that planet called, and how did I spell it?
Yeah.
That's it. And it was this character and this character. Okay, right, that's fine. So right, we'll make sure we remember that bit. Uh, and then for book three, it's a case of having book one and book two open because it's like, right, I might need to cross-reference all of this at once and deep as I
Right.
deep on the world. So, I mean, what I've tried to do with my newer projects, which have nothing to do with this particular trilogy, is have a kind of like a guide behind the scenes, which is a bit more fleshed out. And I dare say that's definitely proven to be a much better idea. I didn't. I mean, I started this other project whilst doing part three of this trilogy, but I didn't change my
Ah,
approach to the trilogy. I just thought, you know what, I'm too far into this one now to change my
right,
approach to this. I'm in too
right.
deep. I'll just keep going the way I've been doing it. Everything new can be different, but this one is just I mean, I wouldn't. This one is just right. Okay, it's almost going to write itself. The characters are going to do what they want at
Yep,
this point,
yep.
and it's less planned out than what's coming. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh. That's it, I relate with that because I have like so many tabs open on my laptop,
Oh yeah.
and some of them is like multiple stories, and there's like I have to group them. I was like, okay, this is for this particular story. This is the other story that's not connected to the story, but because my mind goes like a million miles per hour, because I have a huge imagination that I have to control. I'm like, wait, I'm not on that story yet, but let me put it right here so I don't forget it. and, and when you're developing these like science, scientific technology element of the story, like, do you like do research and like how to like when you're exploring these storylines, do you like do your own research to make it make sense for your story, to not confuse the audience of what's going on? Because like a lot of science fiction movies are based like on like scientific discoveries, but sometimes it's confusing to some people. Like, do you actually do research to make sure you break it down to let people know what's happening?
So with the Awakening and its sequels, I've tried to be. I haven't necessarily done research as such, but I've tried to be consistent with the technology. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
there can't be a scene where where the weapons range is a million miles, and then suddenly it's like they're at point blank range shooting. I mean, that's always something about Star Trek. Where they're like, the range is 300,000 kilometers, and then it cuts to a clip with the two ships almost like doing that, and it's like, well,
Yep. Yep.
okay. I mean, you could let that slide because it's Star Trek, but so I don't tend to do detailed sci-fi research. I once briefly pondered writing. In fact, this happened twice. I was going to write something about ancient Rome,
Mhm.
just a completely different tangent, and that was going to be quite bloody, quite violent. It was inspired by the Spartacus TV series.
Ah, I love that show.
Oh, great
Yeah,
show!
I love
Brilliant
that
show.
show. Heck yeah.
There were a couple of death scenes in that one, punching the air with the light, thinking, you know what, that guy got exactly what he deserved.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yes.
amazing show. But I was
Oh,
going to try and write something based upon that, and I thought to myself, well, I want it to be semi-accurate to what it was like. And then the other one, looking back upon it, I'm faintly surprised I didn't get contacted by the police, although I actually contacted them first. So I had a question about. I said to the police, right, okay, if a murder happens on a railway line, whose jurisdiction is it to deal with it? And someone reading that email must be thinking, why is he asking this question? What is he thinking? What is he planning to do?
oh God.
Like, yeah. I mean, you hear that, don't you? Like, authors might be researching. I mean, if you look at an author's search history, particularly a crime writer's search history,
Yeah.
I mean, you might be thinking, maybe they need a knock on the door from a cop. I don't know. But all I can say is I'm glad I don't write cop mysteries because I'd probably be getting phone calls every 5 minutes from someone somewhere. But yeah, when it comes to the sci-fi thing, I do sort of. I try to be internally consistent, but I don't tend to research science as such because I want a little bit of freedom with the fiction side of it to do what I want.
Wow. I like that actually. I was like, but yeah, small tangent. I love Spartacus. I love every single season. Um, Spartacus is like one of my favorite characters, if I'm being honest. um, and when you're like, and do you like start with characters, the world, or central conflict when you develop in the story?
I didn't quite catch that. Sorry, the line cut out a little bit for me at this end.
Oh, I was saying, do you like when you start when you're crafting a new story? Do you start out with the characters, the conflict, or just the world? Like, how do you start when you start your new story?
So the latest stuff, it's been a little bit of both actually. I picked up a book in my local bookstore, and it's a book on how to write a book, as weird as that sounds. And it's got several blank sections for you to fill in plot points, character information, what your inspiration is, and it's just been a really handy exercise. So I think it kind of has helped me to develop the characters and the plot simultaneously, and in doing so, because they're kind of evolving together, I kind of feel it's the stories which I'm planning are growing more organically. As a matter of fact, there's a really good exercise in the pages of this book, and it can be useful for the sake of the plot and the characters. And it's
Yeah.
called the if exercise. So it starts with like, what if character A goes to London on the 19th of July? What if, whilst he's there, he goes to an art gallery? What if at the art gallery he meets the love of his life, but it turns out she's actually an art thief? What if
Mm.
he gets caught up in the theft of something priceless, and so on and so forth? So it kind of spins off from there. So it's an interesting little exercise, and I'm using that now to kind of plot everything else that I'm writing,
yeah.
just to try and sort of grow it. I mean, you don't want to think about it too much. You just want to almost write what pops into your head. What if A, B, and C, and just go for it.
That's literally how I am. Well, depends on the story, but I try to organize it with an outline, so I don't lose myself in the tracks.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, I see the visuals in my head, and then I just write out what I see in my head, and then I go back to like freshening it up and to edit it to make it make sense. But I just needed to get I need to get it out of my head so I can stop thinking about it so freaking much, so I can actually be on paper. What is like something about writing science fiction that you think readers might not realize is the most difficult part to do?
I think without a doubt, it's actually making the characters particularly relatable. I think as Mark said earlier on, and I know it's very true of Star Trek in particular.
Oof,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, sci-fi is a vehicle for exploring humanity. I mean, to be fair, I think
I never thought of
most
it that way. I like that. Sorry,
yeah.
I know.
I mean, it's like I think most fiction actually. I mean, most stuff, whether it's comics, whether it's music, whether it's film,
Yeah,
whether it's sci-fi, whether it's fantasy, whether it's whatever it is, ultimately the most compelling stories are the ones that connect us to the people in those stories because they're reflecting something about us. I mean, we all like a good popcorn flick movie, but the
true,
ones that
true.
stick with us are the ones that make us feel something. And as long as there's some kind of human connection there, even if it's told through the lens of I know a 15 tentacled green blob of goo, um,
Oh
it can
yeah, right. Because somehow you can make that relatable in some way. So
yeah.
definitely.
If you can bring like a connection emotionally in some way, shape, or form to the
Yeah,
characters. It doesn't matter what they are, who they are, what they're doing, where they're placed, as it were. It's past, future, present. They just have to feel real enough for us to actually care about them. But doing that, it can be tricky. It can be very tricky sometimes, especially when you're writing sci-fi. And it's how you kind of how I mean, you've got to think about how you might connect to people or
yeah.
people, as the case may be. It can be that can be the hardest part. That and the marketing.
That part, yes. Oh my God, yes. And closing out, I like to do like some fun questions after we get like do all the work part. As close on a fun note. So there's like some rapid fire questions a bit.
Okay.
If you could live inside any science fiction universe other than your own, which one would you choose?
Oh wow! I think for all the danger and threat that seems to be within this particular series of books, there's a series of books by an author called Peter Hamilton,
Mm.
and it's called the Void trilogy. And it
I
just
know
sounds
that trilogy. I know that trilogy. Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I know that trilogy.
and I just think to myself, some of the amazing tech, some of the things that you can kind of do.
Yes.
You know what? That would be an amazing playground.
Oh, that would be so fun to play in. I'm not gonna. That would be so much fun to play in.
Give me the
Oh,
Void trilogy for that one.
oh my God. Which character from your books would you trust the least in real life?
Ooh, probably the main antagonist because he's definitely prepared, for the sake of what he believes in, to stab you in the back without a
Oh,
doubt. Without a doubt,
oh,
if it's in his interest or he thinks it's in his empire's interest, he's going to
mhm.
stab you in the back. No question.
Wow. If The Awakening became a movie or a TV show, who would you want directing it?
Ooh, you know what? I had a feeling a question about would it be a TV show would come up, and I was actually really scared, as you might say, who do I want to be in it? Direct it.
I thought about it, but I like to change it up.
Few, is what I can say. Directing's a bit easier. I think
Mm.
maybe it'd be interesting to see the guy who directed the Dune films because they're visually just the most.
I know who you're talking about. I just cannot pronounce his name for the life of me.
Yeah, I mean it's Villeneuve or something. Is his surname Dennis Villeneuve? Is it?
Yeah, yeah, Dennis.
We'll
Yeah,
go with
yes,
that.
yeah. Can't
Uh,
pronounce his last name, but Dennis. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, just like the Dune films are just visually so off the scale in terms of how amazing they look, and so I like him. Second place, not far off him to be fair, would be Christopher Nolan because he's done some amazing stuff as well.
Okay,
Either one of them,
intriguing,
yeah, I mean, either one of them I think would be amazing at that. I couldn't
intriguing,
afford them, but they'd be amazing at that.
intriguing. That's some good directors though. That's some good directors. All right. Um, I was going to ask what actor, but well, I'm gonna skip that one. What's
Phew.
one science fiction cliche you love that you wish writers would stop using?
That I love, but want them to stop using. Ooh,
Yeah, because it's like overdone, but you love it, but it's just overdone by now.
Characters coming back all the time from the dead.
Oh,
I mean, some of the
yes.
characters you want to see back. I don't want to see this character die necessarily, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, how many times, in particular, like in Stargate, I mean, I lost track of the number of times that Daniel Jackson died, and the number of times that
1,000 times at this point.
it's like, I mean, he even made a joke about himself in the show. It's like, when do you quit? When I'm dead. And sometimes not even then. And it's like, yeah, because the writers were metal enough to know that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just getting a bit over the top now. He's dead again. Yeah, he dies a lot. It's just like, I know it's an interesting vehicle and it can lead to like shock and awe, but sometimes it looks so silly. And it cheapens the moment as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Agreed.
I hated that with Star Wars and when they brought back Palpatine. I mean, he's a great character and the actor. I mean, I love Palpatine. I just love his voice. And
I love.
now,
Yeah. I'm a villain guy, so I love Pepperton too.
yeah,
If I'm being honest,
I mean, he's
but that just didn't make sense for me to bring him back in the trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and like I think that to me that just felt like lazy writing. I was like, you did not have to
yeah,
bring him back to, but okay, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I love it. I love him dearly, but I've often said actually he'd be really good at barbecues because he could just use his lightning to cook everything, which would be nice and easy. That's if the Empire has like a barbecue day. I don't know. But yeah, that's food for thought. I mean, does Palpatine dress up as Santa at Christmas? Does he do that?
yeah.
No? Can you imagine that? And
Oh my god.
it'd be creepy.
Final question is: if you could give your younger self one piece of advice before writing your first book, what would it be?
Piece of advice: cut the blue wire. No. Uh, I think it would be. I mean, I think what I would probably like to say is have the confidence to start writing a bit earlier in life. I mean,
Wow.
you can start this any time. I didn't get my first book out there in any form at all until 2020.
Mm,
But would things have been slightly different if I've managed to do that, say, 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier? And if I'd had the confidence to really go for it then, rather than waiting, then I mean maybe that's what I try and say. Look, you've got these ideas, you've got these stories. Stop looking at excuses not to do it. Just do it. See what happens, and yeah, start sooner. But
heck yeah.
no time to start, but now. So
Heck yeah. I like that. I like that. Like, thank you so much for coming on, man. Um, this your series sounds freaking awesome. And to you guys that's listen, make sure you go buy his book. Links are in the description of this live, man. And I can't wait for the paperbacks to come out. And when you have the link, please send it over so I can share it around. But where can we like follow you on socials to keep up to date with you?
thank you so much for having me on the show. I will try and I'll send you my socials are actually on my website. To be fair, so you should see all of them
Okay,
on there.
there is in the yeah, well, your website's in the description of the video too. So
Yeah, so all the social links are actually on there. So it's Facebook, Twitter.
nice.
I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. I think I'm on all of them. I think. I don't know. I've probably missed one, but you'll find
Nice.
me pretty much everywhere.
Well, you heard the man. It's on his website, guys, in the description of this live while you're watching. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Make sure you go back. I mean, go buy The Awakening, go buy Schism, and you're more than welcome to come back anytime you want, man. Open invitation. And if you guys out there have any questions for Ben, leave them out in the comments, and we'll bring them back and he can answer them.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely.
And you can find me on Instagram at I am Kevin Davis Official. Here in my podcast Kevirsyle Network here at the Madness Entertainment Group because we're all mad sometimes, especially we're huge nerds and fans of science fiction, horror, and art in general. And you find me on Facebook at I am Kevin Davis CEO, and we'll see you guys around.
Thank you.